Can the Cuban government be trusted to make a deal with the United States and Donald Trump and Marco Rubio? It remains to be seen, but here's a clip from Fox Business discussing everything that's going on Cuba. And I have a lot of comments on this particular video because I'm going to give you the history of how we're here with Cuba and Fidel Castro and why Fidel did what he did, not excusing what he did, but just to give you more context on why Cuba is where it is today. Hit the clip.
Joins us now. David, it's great to have you on the subject.
Great, but you didn't know I could write so well when I was only 9 years old,
I thought
right?
that was ChatGPT, but ChatGPT didn't exist yet. No, you've got the inside track here. I'm amazed by the speed at which President Trump wants to move on to places like Cuba. Yeah. Do you view what he's saying about the prospects of economic deals as a very positive thing?
Oh, 100%.
And why?
Well, all you have to do, the question why is answered by Miami. Look at Miami. Modern day Miami was essentially built by Cubans, leaving Cuba after it was quite clear that Fidel Castro was a communist. Remember, he came in saying he was anti-communist, that he was friends to business in Cuba. It only took a couple of months to realize that he was a hardcore Marxist, and he drove them out of there. They went to Miami. It took a couple of decades to build up Miami to what it is today, one of the great metropolises in the United States. And the entrepreneurial spirit that they brought to Miami still exists in Cuba. There are Cubans, when I covered it for 12 years, from 1983 until about 1995, I covered Latin America. And when you'd go to Cuba, you would realize that everybody would love to be an entrepreneur. And there were times when the economy got so bad that Fidel Castro, who was primarily in charge for most of the recent history, he would open it up a little bit. He would allow for private restaurants. He would allow for private tour guides. And once they got too powerful or too successful, he would close them down again.
Pause it here. He's absolutely right. I mean, Cuban entrepreneurs built Miami, and that's a fact. If you go back from when Cubans started getting here, Miami was not even a metropolis. It was a small city. Those buildings you see now were not even here, and Miami got built by Cubans. Obviously, there's been other people from Latin America that have come here and they've been part of it, but Miami was built at the start by Cubans. You have some of the most prominent families down here in South Florida, like the Moss family, that have built successful businesses, right? Moss Tech. They have a soccer franchise now in Inter Miami, right? You have Mike Fernandez that has built a healthcare empire, pioneer of managed care, right? So he's absolutely right. The Cuban spirit when it comes to entrepreneurship is some of the best in the world. And why is that? There's many reasons why. It's a sense of having to fight for everything that you need to live every single day and trying to get better and better when they come here. Understanding the opportunity that they have when they come here running from what they were running from. But I want to back up. I want to go to Castro when he first took over Cuba in 59 and he ran Batista out. Castro was an opportunist. I wouldn't label him as a Marxist when he started, right? But he saw that what happened to Batista with the United States and the CIA, it was going to happen to him as well. And he had to go strike a deal with the Russians. And that's where Cuba truly turned to communism. Raul Castro, his brother, has been a known Marxist pretty much his whole entire life. If you look back at videos of him just speaking about imperialism versus, communism, you can just see where his ideology laid. But I think Castro was an opportunist, and he saw an opportunity to stay in power. He was going to have to turn Cuba into a communist island, and that's why we're here today. So I just want to give some context to the audience on how Cuba's here today with Castro. But he's absolutely right. When it comes to entrepreneurship, I would put Cubans up against anybody in the world just because of our spirit and everything that we had to endure, right? We're I'm first generation in this country, and I fight every day because I think about where my parents came from, having nothing. We grew up with nothing. And the opportunity that's afforded to us in this country every single day, I do not take that lightly, right? There's a reason why I have such an issue with Mandami and his ideas. You can't have governments running businesses because what happened in Cuba will happen here. And you're going to have businesses start running out of these Democrat-led states that have communist ideology when it comes to running businesses. And listen, I'm not against guardrails against businesses. I think when corporations get too big, it's a problem as well. I think there needs to be a balance, but there needs to be privatization versus government-ran entities, because that's where the true problems come, right? You know, Mandami has ideas of groceries being ran by New York, by the local government, by the government. That has never worked. If you look at Cuba and their process to get food, they have what's called a libreta, which is a list of certain items they can get per month. They can get like a pound of rice per month, and don't quote me on that, but there's certain rations of things that they can get, certain amount of beans that they can get per month. That's communism, because that system never works, right? You don't get innovation, right, with communism, right? You just don't. So that's where I have the problem with Mandami and these communist ideas. And listen, I voted, okay? I just want to make this clear. I voted for Hillary Clinton. I voted for Barack Obama twice. I was a Democrat. I grew up Democrat. My dad was a JFK Democrat, Bill Clinton Democrat. But that Democrat Party is not the same Democrat Party that it is today. They have gone way too left with their ideas, right? And it just doesn't, they alienated me and pushed me away. Now I'm an independent that leans right, because none of the ideas on the left I can get behind. And that's the biggest problem that I have with the Democrat Party. And you let people like AOC, the Ilhan Omars of the world, the Mandamis of the world, these are the ones that are coming up in that party and becoming superstars in that party. And that worries the hell out of me. Right? Speak to any Venezuelan, speak to any Cuban. They'll tell you how this process goes and the writing's on the wall. So we have to be vigilant as Americans on these ideas that they're trying to push on us. Bill Maher, right, that leans super left, has called Mandami a communist, a full-blown communist. And he is. You cannot argue that he's not a communist, right? And these ideas in the history of the world have never worked. Capitalism, is it perfect? No, but it's the best system if you want to prosper. It rewards your work. If you put in the work and you have good ideas and you innovate, you're going to get rewarded by that system. But this system of everybody should be equal, everybody should get paid the same, that will never work in our society. It just will never work. And these people at the top will always steal the money, because this is what happens in these communist-led, countries and states. They will steal the money. So I'll let the video continue here, because I just think it's a great clip here on really discussing Cuba, the Cuban people when it comes to entrepreneurship, and discussing now he's going to touch on Marco Rubio and his implication with this whole entire Cuba situation. Roll the clip.
Use that sort of that carrot and stick approach to keep the people in line, and it was so demoralizing to the entrepreneurs, because they would just get something exciting. It's so exciting when you start a business of your own and it is successful. Immediately they would smack it down. That shows that the spirit is alive, and nobody understands the spirit as much as Donald Trump. Nobody in the whole world understands the spirit of entrepreneurialism like Donald Trump does. And he sees what I saw. He sees that the entrepreneurs, Marco Rubio is Cuban descent. Marco understands exactly what Cuba is capable of doing. Without the embargo, the United States embargo that's been in place for decades and decades, Obama opened it a little bit, but then Trump closed it up again. But that's what Trump can play with. That's what President Trump can play with in order
Stop the clip. And Marco Rubio is such an integral part into these Cuban negotiations, right? He understands Cuba. And I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of Cuban people about the situation. And the thing is that they've seen this story before, that we're here, they're about to go under, and they don't. And some way, somehow they stay alive, right? They stay in power, and they do not trust this. But I think things are different, right? Trump has been very strategic on how he's handled the Western Hemisphere. Venezuela the oil is being controlled by Venezuela. China and Russia are out of our Western Hemisphere. He has gotten them out of, our Western Hemisphere. He has total control over this situation. Cuba can't turn to anybody in the world right now that's going to help them. So they are going to have to turn to us, if they want to keep the money they stole, and they're going to have to cut a deal. If they don't cut a deal, I believe, in my opinion, there's going to be indictments from the United States on all these figures, from Raul Castro to his grandson to Miguel Diaz-Canel. And the same thing that happened to Marco Rubio is going to happen to these people, because Marco Rubio understands when you negotiate with these people, you can't give them a finger. He understands how this government moves. Marco Rubio is such an integral part to this getting done. And that's why I'm so confident that we're weeks away. I've been saying days, but we're probably weeks away from them coming to make a deal. Because if they don't do a deal, I can tell you one thing. Trump and Rubio are going to go take it. And you can just read through the lines. You can see the commentary from Trump. You can see it from Rubio. They're not playing around. And when Trump says something, you better believe him at his word. And this is going to get resolved. See, the Cuban government cannot stall this out, right? Trump is in power for the next 3 years. There's no way they can sustain the island for 3 years the way it is today. There's no power. There's no gas. There's no economy. There's no money coming in. The people are going to continue to rebel. Hopefully they don't have guns, right? And that's a big problem. But they're, the images are going to continue to come out where people are hitting the streets, not taking this anymore. And they're going to have to come to the table and make a deal. If not, they're going to, they're going to get Maduro'd, right? They're going to go get got by the United States, right? So, I think Cuba comes to the table finally, and I think this gets done. I think we're close, and this is why you're hearing all the chatter. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Comment. We love the feedback. Catch you on the next one.